So, Father, we come before you, God, as your servants, God, and we know that we can do nothing without you. Father God, we do not desire to have a religious service, but we have a desire, oh God, to have a personal connection with you. Yeah. So we ask that you send your presence, God. We ask that you send your angels to inspect this place. For we would like this place to be holy ground. So God, we beseech you. We call out to your holy name, God. And God, we are searching for you. We're saying that, God, we need you. God, we love you. Lord, we know that a broken heart and a contrite spirit, you can't resist it. So God, we humble ourselves before you and we become broken before you, God. God, we ask that you search our hearts today, Father. We right now, oh God, ask right now that you forgive us for all sin, oh God, because we know that sin cannot exist in the camp. Hallelujah. And so, God, by the blood of Jesus, God, my God, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood, the blood of Jesus 7 times over us and this place, oh God, because without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. You said in your word that we can approach your throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy in our time of need, oh God. And we're saying right here and right now that we need you, God. We're saying we need you, God. God, we are calling upon your holy name. We're calling upon the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Hallelujah. We are calling upon the God of Elijah. Hallelujah. The God that answers by fire. We are calling upon you, oh God. We're calling upon you, God, who parted the waters, my God. Make no mistake about it, God. We are saying that Yahweh is the only and true living God. God, we acknowledge that you are the eternal one, that you are the self-existing God, that without you, God, you need no help from no other thing, no other person, that you are totally sovereign, God. We acknowledge that you are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Hallelujah. We acknowledge, like Jethro said to Moses, we know that you are the greater one. My God, you are the greater one. We know that you are great and you're greatly to be praised. Hallelujah. So God, we give you praise and honor for what you have done in our lives. But God, we worship you for who you are. My God, for you are El Shaddai, the Almighty. My God. You are the Almighty God. So God, we bow before you. We humble ourselves before you, God. We refuse to allow a rock to cry out in our place. For we will say that Jesus is Lord. Hallelujah. You said in your word that you have given no other name unto men whereby we must be saved. Hallelujah. And that is at the name of Jesus. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord to the glory of the Father. Hallelujah. So for your glory, God, for your glory we serve you, God. For your glory we love you, God. For your glory, God, we ask that you even see your glory in this place. Let it come, oh God, and let it be so heavy that we cannot stand to minister like your priest of old. Hallelujah. And as your glory fill this place, oh God, we know that things come when you show up. Good things, because you are good all the time. Hallelujah. And so we know that deliverance and healing, we know that miracles that come when you show up, God, but we're not necessarily seeking your hand, but we seek your face this morning. And so, God, we say, come. Holy Spirit, you're welcome in this place. We ask that you minister to us, God. And so, God, we just pray for those who guard the door, those who greet, Father, the minstrels, God, those who play and usher in your spirit, God, the media, the sound people, God. We just ask that right now, God, you bless the word that's going to go forth today, God. We ask that the anointing come heavy and strong. And God, will give you all the glory in the mighty, matchless name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Well, welcome to the Center of Attraction, where Jesus truly is the center of it all in this place. And so we give him the glory. And my name is Les, and I'll be your pulpit conductor for today. And we just want to welcome you to our church. So we're going to ask that you please stand as we do our vision and our mission statement. Amen. Amen. And our vision is to be the best training and evangelistic ministry in the world. Our mission, center of attraction, exists for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus through worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. What kind of place is this? A progressive and prosperous place. A place of worship to our God, an apostolic and prophetic place. A place of community and international outreach. A place exploding in growth. And what did Jesus say in John 12:32? And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. So what do we want to do today? Lift him up, lift him up, lift Jesus up. Hallelujah. So God, and it comes from Psalms 92, verses 1 through 4. The Bible reads, "It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord, and to sing praises unto thy name, O Most High, to show forth thy loving kindness in the morning, and thy faithfulness evening, night," or every night, "upon an instrument of 10 strings, and upon the pastry, upon the harps with a solemn sound. For thou, Lord, hast made me glad through thy work. I will triumph in the works of thy hand." So God, we just lift you up. You said in your word that it's a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord. So we will approach you with our praise and worship with the attitude of gratitude. We will be so grateful and so thankful for what you have done in our lives, God. We will remember when back then that we know that you are the same God now as you was then. Hallelujah. You are the same God now. You were the same God back then. You were faithful and you were truthful and you were loving and your heart was tender towards us back then as it is now. So God, we give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Praise the Lord. Give God another praise. Hallelujah. Come on, give him some praise and glory. Let's do his thing. How great is our God. Hallelujah. 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 Well, it's a little change in our service today before we get into praise and worship. We're having a wonderful opportunity to dedicate a child here today. And we want to ask the parents to come and bring this little jewel, this little angel with them. And whoever else, godparents, whoever else that wants to come, please do so right now. There's a gray infinity alarm going on.
Ford Fusion.
It's a fusion. Ford Fusion.
Ford Fusion.
Ford Fusion. Great Ford Fusion. All right. Whoever is wanting to take pictures, this is the time to do so as well. All right. If you could come over here. That's wonderful. And I can have the oil. Place it over here. Oh yeah, you can take some pictures, whatever. So who do we have here? We have. Hello. These are your parents? Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember you now. Yeah, okay. Okay, and so we're family and God. Who's the godparents? Godparent this one right here. God be with you. That's all I can say. Baby, God be with you. Amen. Well, doesn't she look beautiful? Just let everybody see her first. Yes. Now, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Oh, come over here. All right. Well, dedication is very important. It's all throughout Scripture. We're dedicating this child to the Lord. And in doing so, we're asking the Lord to be gracious to this child first, then to the parents, and then also to the support group as well. Because I know the world says it takes a village, but truly it takes a covenant relationship to raise a child. And what I mean by that is not only are the parents are coveting themselves to this child that have come from their love, but also those that are connected to them and thus to this newborn as well. Very important. Let me also say before we go through the ceremonial piece that you ought to be in your prayer time now, presenting this dear baby to the Lord every time you pray. And be open to whatever the Lord has to share with you concerning how you will touch this baby's life. Now, whether it is through monetary means or counsel or wisdom or advice or whatever it may be, that you'll be ready and prepared for that. You have something to say? Okay, I thought you were saying something there. All right, so that's very important. It's also important that you're connected to a wider community, a church community, amen, and so that the love can spread even further. Amen. So church, let's be prayerful during this time. Do you parents desire earnestly that this child grow up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord? Say, we do. And do you covenant together to strive to bring to the Lord this child with knowledge of Scripture, to teach her loving, obedient reverence for God and for His Son Jesus Christ, and to use all the agencies of the church to accomplish this end? Say, we do. Now, as you dedicate this child today, do you also desire to dedicate yourselves again to the Lord as parents, to Christ and the church, and that you may live exemplary lives, and so living may present and commend Christ to your child from her youth up? Say, we do. And having heard these vows and sacred promises as your minister today, we solemnly, as well as your church community, solemnly support your dedication to this child and these children as they grow up in the nurturing and the admonition of the Lord. And we promise that whatever we can do to help in your spiritual journey and thus in their spiritual journey, that we will be there to support you along the way. Amen? The scripture says in Luke 18:16, let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of God. Now, church, I want you to repeat after me. Say, truly, I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God, like a child, shall not enter it. Now, that's Luke 18:17. Scripture also says this, and I know you may be tempted at times, but hear me well in Ephesians 6:4. Do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Amen. And so we're going to dedicate this child now. All right, the full name of the child is
Nala Brielle Shantice Thomas.
All right. Better you say it than me. So, baby girl, we dedicate you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, that you will grow in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord, that everything that God has given to you will function perfectly, and that in your growing up, that there will be peace, there will be joy, and even if there's struggle, you will have the strength of the Lord all the days of your life. We declare the grace of God to be with you from this day forward. Now we dedicate you to the Lord until you come to that time when you yourself will give your life to the Lord. So Father, right now we thank you as we dedicate her to you today. We give her to you, Lord God. You have given her to these wonderful parents and to us, and now we give her back to you, Father. We thank you, God, for this life, and now this life belongs to you. We dedicate her to you again in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit for your keeping power and your keeping grace in Jesus' name. Let us bow our head in prayer. Our Father whose home is in heaven, we pray now for this earthly home with this child and actually these children. Most important, we ask that as they grow older, that they grow in the understanding of your will for them during their days among us. We pray for friends for them that would please you. We pray for the husband and the wife that these will soon engage in. May they choose their life's partner wisely, looking to you for guidance. We pray for the measure of health that we all want our children to enjoy. We pray for the personalities of these innocent and unspoiled children. We want them to be fun to be around, helpful in their efforts, sincere in their commitments, and disciplined in their responsibility. We want these children to have hobbies and interests and education and a vocation that fits the skills and that which pleases you, Lord. So we ask for this and others for Nyla to you today, Lord. And we thank you, Father, that you hear and answer the prayers of your saints. Your eyes are upon us, your ears are open to our cry. Now, Father, we thank you. We can just move forward just a little bit. We're going to pray for these today. Hallelujah. As the support base, in Jesus' name, come. Father, even now as we anoint everyone, and as they represent others in the family, in the name of Jesus Christ, that, Lord God, that they will stand by her side, by their side, and that, Lord God, that they will be a positive force and not a negative one. And we declare, Lord God, that their health, Lord God, be such that they can see, Lord God, the growth and the nurturing and the developing of this, Lord God, your child that you have presented to all of us today. We thank you today, Lord God, for your grace being upon them, your strength right now being upon them, their steps being one of peace. And we thank you today, Lord God, again, that you have heard our cry and that you have accepted this time of dedication. And we give you the praise and glory that's due to your name. All over this room, come on, put those hands together and begin to thank God. Anything the parents want to say before we? Nothing. Yeah, emblematic of their children. Have nothing to say. But we just thank God today for you and for honoring God in your life by dedicating your children to the Lord. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord, saints. Stand to your feet, everyone, as we get ready for praise and worship. Put together those 10-string instruments as we get ready to sing and praise the Lord. Come on, praise team. And as we, hallelujah, use our voices as a trumpet, I would want to say, before the Lord here today. Amen. So let's stand to our feet. Let's get ready to praise the Lord. God bless you.
hindering the music. The music's not flowing. I just feel a wrong spirit. What I need y'all all to do is get in the first 3 rows because we're not enemies, we're all friends. Y'all just come closer. Everybody move in the first 3 rows. And we're going to pray in the spirit. Let's begin to pray in the spirit. I need my intercessors to walk around in the praise. Some flaggers get flags. We're going to drive out that spirit. You know this the month of October and we're dealing with more demonic influence than we've ever dealt with. There's things happening in our nation, in our capital. There's evil spirits of strife loose and anarchy and all kind of things are loose and backbiting and jealousy and envy. And where strife is, the Bible says there's every evil work. Every evil work. The blood has not lost its power. The blood has not lost its power. The blood has not lost its power. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. The blood has not
spiritual life. Covenant is based on blood. Something had to die in order for things to come together that could not be broken. The Bible speaks that Jesus' blood speaks better things than the blood of Abel. For Abel's blood cried out for justice, but praise the Lord that Jesus' blood cries out for mercy. His blood causes us to have mercy in our life. And if you don't understand the revelation of the blood, I encourage you to study this thing out. Study it out, because you will start understanding when God made covenant and he said, we're going to do it in blood. That means that my enemies become his enemies, and his enemies become mine, and my family becomes his family. And everything that belongs to him belongs to me, and everything that belongs to me belongs to him. But I'm going to tell you today, church, I found out I have nothing on God. And so the covenant that we have with the Lord Jesus Christ says we gain everything, and our enemy loses it all. Thank you, Jesus, for your blood. Hallelujah. And so this is the part of the service where if you heard something, if you saw something, or if something was impressed upon you, then we want you to share it. And it has to be for the body. It has to be for us, for the ecclesia, for the church here. We encourage you to share it. Ministers of the house already know the routine. If you're new here and the Lord showed you something, please write it down. Bring it to the altar here. Let prophetess decide whether it should be released or not. And then we'll let it go from there, okay? So, if you got something from the Lord, we need you to come on up. Amen. While the men and women of God are preparing themselves, I'll share what the Lord was showing me when you guys were saying the walls to fall. He causes the walls to fall. And the Lord showed me the children of Jericho marching around the wall, and it was their first city to their breakthrough. And I'm asking you today, and the Lord is inquiring of you today, what is your Jericho? What have you been marching around and that wall has not fallen for you? I encourage you to go back and do what God has instructed you to do. For the children of Israel had specific instructions to march around that city 7 times and do not say a word. Have you been complaining about your Jericho? God don't like complaining. I'm saying follow instructions and march around it and don't say a word.
Don't say a word.
And when the trumpet sound, and you're going to hear the Lord trumpet sound, then the children of Israel gave a great shout. And I can only imagine that they said, hallelujah! And the Bible says that the wall fell down flat. They didn't have to move no bricks out the way. They didn't have any obstacles in their way. What are the obstacles in your Jericho? I'm telling you, the Lord will make it flat. And when you get to step into the victory, let me tell you, do not touch the gold or don't touch his glory. See, all the gold and the silver and the iron and the brass went into the house of the Lord. He said, if you take it, it's an accursed thing. I am telling you, when you break through to your Jericho, you give God the glory. You give him the praise. Don't touch it. Don't tell people, you all that. No, I'm not. It's God. You did well. No, I didn't. It's God. You okay? No, I'm not. It's God. I refuse to touch his gold, and I won't touch his glory because he deserves it all. And now, as I cross over into my Beulah land, after I get past my Jericho, then I can reap the benefits of what God has gave me. did. I crossed over.
Hallelujah.
Man, I could have danced on that, but don't do it. Don't do it. I can't dance. You sure can.
I feel like dancing right now, but I gotta get this. Jesus, I'll never forget what you've done for me. Jesus, I'll never forget how you set me free. Out of the worldly things and put us into his household. We became new creatures in Christ Jesus. But because we allow our circumstances and the things that we go through, we keep regressing
Holy Spirit said we have to remember that we are new creatures in Christ. We have been taken out of that old life. We no longer have on the old clothes. We have new minds, new attitudes. We must start walking in the newness of life that God has already given us. And then when Prophetess has had the floor to start singing the blood songs. I saw some of God people like going to the fountain and then backing up because you still attached to the old man. Cut the old man off. Step into the water. Step into the blood. Walk through every morning. Tell God, tell Satan, decree to yourself, I am a new creature in Christ. All things are passed away. He didn't say it was going to happen all at once. Come on now. All things are passed away. They are changing every day. Every day. So begin to walk in the newness of life that God has already provided for you.
John chapter 1, excuse me, verse 12 says, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right, or the power, or the authority to become children of God, sons and daughters, to those who believe in his name. There's 3 key words in here. Receive him. Once you've received him and things don't go your way, he won't be evicted, but you'll try to evict him because he ain't done nothing. You God, Jesus, why you let this happen to me, Jesus? Because he's trying to bring you to a place of maturity and understanding who you are in Christ Jesus. Because in Isaiah it says, when the enemy comes in, and then you probably heard this different, but I'm saying what Jesus is saying, like a flood, I lift a standard against you. So when the enemy comes in, all he wants to do is try to take away your belief system. He wants you to take away. He wants to take away the fact that he knows if you know who you are, he has no power in your life. You don't. Because you don't thinking about no devil. All you're thinking about is God. You ain't thinking about yourself. Because after all, that's what happens, right? We start thinking about ourselves, and we lose sight of Jesus. Get yourself out the way. Let Jesus.
I just have 2 blood scriptures I wanted to share that God dropped in my spirit. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. So we know why we're shouting about the blood. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, according to the riches of his grace, which he made to abound toward us in all wisdom and prudence. I'm going to leave there and then go to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. We're talking about the blood. Why we shout about the blood. And it's going to be 4 scriptures here. Therefore, remember that you once Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision made in the flesh by hands. That was the Jews. That at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenant of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. 13. But now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. Hallelujah. So we are brought near. Hallelujah. We are cleansed. Hallelujah. We are saved and redeemed by that blood. And without the shedding of blood, there is no sacrifice. Amen.
just going forth about the blood. Yesterday I was sitting in my room and I was praying, and I began to hear the blood. And I kept saying, Lord, the blood. So I began to find me some songs and play the blood of Jesus. And thank God that prophetess tapped right on into the blood. And I was just like, man, my God, it is such an awesome thing to know God sent his only begotten son who to be able to die for our sins. He died for us. He shed his blood for us so that we may live again for him. So I was thinking about that, you know, and then also some other things that I was sitting here thinking about was, what kept me bound? What kept me from God? There was fear that held me bound and captive. But if it wasn't for the blood, I wouldn't be free. What else kept me so bound? I had so many things out in the world that held me and held on to me that didn't want to let me go. But the blood had to come in and say, you got to release her. Because the blood of Jesus is what counts. The blood of Jesus is what does the work for us. So you have to think about the blood, how he released you, how he saved you, how he turned you around, how he took you out of the danger. Anything that's been out there in the world, he pulled you out of danger. You couldn't see the danger, but he pulled you out by the blood of Jesus. By the blood of Jesus. So think about the blood. The blood that cleanses, the blood that heals, the blood that delivers, the blood that sets you totally free from the hand of the enemy, sets you free from darkness, sets you free. You no longer have to be bound by those things because of the blood of Jesus.
God gave me this in prayer this morning when I was walking around praying this morning. 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, and I'm going to read out the English Standard Version. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus. Now, after I had that accident, I had to keep on praying because since I had that accident last Thursday, we almost got in 2 different serious accidents. But we've been praying every day. I said, I can't stop praying just because I didn't get seriously hurt. I'm bruised all over and my body hurt, but I didn't get seriously hurt. That other guy that hit me, his car was totaled out and hit me, and my car is supposed to be ready the first time next week. That's all I say, thank you, Jesus. The gas tank was hanging down. That could have just exploded and killed me. It could have killed me. Now, right before this, 2 or 3 weeks before this, every single day and night, what if been the night or day, I would smell fire and smoke. And I would get up. And Leon can't hear good, so I didn't want to go in there and hit him with the bat. To wake him up, to tell him what God was showing me, but I just kept getting up. I kept smelling smoke and fire. And one night I went to the garage to see was the car on fire. And then one day I went down in the basement, like it was smoke and fire. I kept smelling this. Before that, and I just kept warning the spirit and praying all through the night. Every night I didn't get no sleep. Because I kept praying all through the night. All through the night I prayed. I said, Lord, what is this? I just kept saying, what is this, Lord? And the Lord gave it to me when I was in that hospital. Pray without ceasing. Keep praying. Because the enemy, he gonna stop. He gonna try to take me out every chance he gets. But he's a liar. He's a father of lies. That's why we have to pray. We have to pray. And I'm praying with the blood of Jesus because without the Lord, without the blood of Jesus, I would not have known my sin in the house. I wouldn't be here on my Satan, on my house. Without the blood of Jesus, I wouldn't be here. So Saints, continue praying for me. You gotta.
This is what I heard. I heard this at home this week. And but what the Holy Spirit said today, I heard the Lord say that he wants the devil so confused today and here on out. We have been letting the devil have his way too much. He wants his voice to be heard. God is saying he wants his voice to be heard. His voice can be heard through praise, dancing, the piano, drums, the tangerines, harps, speaking his word, crazy praise. He said, when you come in his house, act like no one is here but you. Don't be ashamed to praise me, he said. This is our way of confusing the enemy and keeping him down, because the enemy tries to be smart. He tries to be split. But we thank God, hallelujah, that what the enemy meant for evil, that God turns around and brings good out of it. So don't be ashamed to praise me, he said. You act like you're crazy. Yeah. You know, when church is over, you can't, everybody talking, and you can't hear, you can't understand what the person's people are saying, because everybody trying to talk at the same time, right? So there's confusion right there. So if all of us get up and start praising God at the same time, that is confusion. And that'll put the devil on the run. Okay? So let's begin to praise God. Don't be ashamed to get up and praise God because we're around people. Let's praise him no matter what. That's how. I'm going to say this. Last night, when I went to bed last night, my hand was hurting a little bit. So around about 2 o'clock in the morning, it woke me up. I woke up, my fingers, this whole hand was swollen. All these fingers were swollen. I couldn't even get my hand like that at all. So I said, devil, you're a lie. You think you're smart. You think you're going to keep me from going to church tomorrow, but you are a lie. So I got up. I started talking to the Lord. I heard the Holy Spirit say, just run hot water. So I went in there. Water was hot. And I just held it up. I said, okay, Lord. And about 15 minutes or 20 minutes after I got done doing that, I could move these fingers, and my hand fingers went down. That's because I was giving God the praise and wasn't giving the enemy the praise. Because the enemy did not deserve it. God deserves the praise. So, praise God no matter what.
Praise the Lord. Words of encouragement. I admonish you to use the blood this week. Bleed the blood over your children, over your family. The blood provides provision and protection. So when the Lord brings it back to your remembrance, you're not crazy, okay? Say of the blood. Just speak the blood. The Lord knows, the Spirit knows what we need before we need it. Amen. All right, so it's offering time. Hallelujah. And so if you are making out a check, please make it out to Center of Attraction or COA. You are want to give online, Givelify. You want to use your debit card. We have point of sale as well. If you need an envelope, please raise your hands and our ushers will be glad to serve you. And while you are preparing your offering, I'm going to read the word. It's going to come from Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 through 12. And the Bible reads, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have ye robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and prove me now wherewith saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. Amen. Amen. All right, so everybody got what they need. We're going to ask everybody to please stand as we read our offering affirmation. Amen. As we give our tithes and offerings, we are believing you, Lord, for jobs and better jobs, raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritances, interest and income, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine help, gifts and surprises, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debts demolished, royalties received, scholarships and grants, contracts, money management, 100-fold return, according to your word, in Jesus' name. Please follow the directions of the ushers. Stretch your hands this way. So, Father, we just thank you for giving us an opportunity to worship you with our giving. God, we truly understand that we can't beat you doing that, but we thank you that you have provided an opportunity for us to prove who you are. We bless those who gave, and we ask that you bless those who desire to give but did not have it. We ask that you press it down, shake it together, make it run over as men give it to our bosoms. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. Hallelujah. Are we ready for the word? How about this? You ready for some more word? Because a lot of word went forth today. Hallelujah. So we're going to have our very own prophetess Leola Glenn. She's going to bring the word today. She's a powerful preacher, even a better teacher. I really enjoy it. As a teacher gift myself, I like to break down the homiletics and hermeneutics and all that good stuff. That stuff excites me. I don't know about you. We appreciate prophetess while she comes. She's going to set it up. Put this date. Can you put this down there and set it up for it, please? Stretch your hand towards prophetess. Father, in Jesus' name, God, we lift her up before you. God, we pray that she decrease as you increase. Holy Spirit, we ask for you to flow unabated, uninhibited. Let her give us a word in due season. Let the word go forth to nourish us as she feed and lead this flock, God. Let her words that you give her from the Holy Spirit break chains, inform, God, set us free. Even now, let miracles come forth. Brag up your word with signs and wonders, like you said. And God will give you all the glory. In the mighty, matchless name of Jesus, amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Good to see everybody here this morning. This is God's house, and we're not at home. You know, a lot of times, sometimes I think we think that we are the spectators, and everybody else participate. But God is the one that's looking at us, and we are the participators. And we need to draw nigh to God through the blood of Jesus. You heard us emphasizing the blood today. I would have you a handout, but our copy machine is on the brink right now. It needs to be fixed again, I guess. And so we'll get you a handout because it's about 4 or 5 copies we have. And even a Wednesday Bible study a couple of weeks ago, I wrote again the scriptures down on the blood of Jesus, why we should pray the blood scriptures every day. You know, you're cleansed through the blood. You are washed through the blood. You are sanctified by the blood. You're consecrated by the blood. Minister Pat went through the scriptures I was thinking of, that we're redeemed by the blood of Jesus, that we are forgiven by the blood of Jesus. Without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. The word remission means blot out. Our sins have been blotted out. And then he said, your sins and iniquities, he's cast into the sea of forgetfulness. Somebody say, God forgets. Say, God's not remembering your sin. So who is remembering your sin? I think sometimes we remember our sin. Our relatives make sure they let us know they remember our sin. Your enemies remember your sin. And then Satan remembers your sin. But the Bible says only a wicked man will bring up your past. And look at the neighbor and say, are you wicked? Okay. Are you wicked? Okay. No, we're not going to be wicked, are we? We're going to forgive people. You know, it's easier said than done. I heard Marilyn Hickey say she was going through something and she said, God, I can't forgive this person. And then God said, I'll give you the grace to forgive them. Somebody say, God, give me more grace. Say, God, give me more grace. God, I haven't been able to get over the situation. Every time I think about it like they just did it to me yesterday. But God, give me the grace to forgive them. I'm not going back. Somebody say, we're not going back. We're not going back. And I'm going to help you a little bit here. When they came out of Egypt and they didn't have no water and they wanted to kill Moses immediately because there was no water, Moses prayed and God said, go get a stick. He got the stick and threw it into the water and the bitter waters became sweet. Somebody say, the bitter waters became sweet. See, what you got to do is put the cross in the situation and the bitter waters will become sweet. Nobody deserves forgiveness. Somebody else say, nobody deserves forgiveness. But if Jesus can say, Father, forgive them. Come on now. If Jesus can say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. How much more can you say, Father, forgive them? Maybe they know what they're doing, but Father, forgive them. I forgive them. I let it go. And this is one thing I learned. I've been saved over 40 years filled with the Holy Ghost. I learned you can't rehearse stuff. You can't nurse it. If you say you've forgiven people, you can't go around telling everybody what they've done to you. It's got to be gone. You got to let it go. You got to put it in the blood. You got to bury it. Don't go to the graveyard and dig up no dead bodies, no skeletons. You got to bury it. Once in a while, let it go. Somebody say, get over it. Say, get over it. You're not the first person this happened to. You may think you're the only person that ever been through this, but not so. Well, I was thinking about the blood because I had been praying the blood and I heard a man of God say, you know what? Satan don't want you to plead the blood of Jesus. He hates the blood of Jesus because that demonstrated his defeat. And if you were here last week for the pastor's appreciation, you know it was revival time. How the apostle gave the people the word, grace for the gifts. Somebody say grace for the gift. And one of the brothers preached on that we are redeemed from the curse of law. He talked about Jesus being the gift, Jesus being that grace gift. And then he has redeemed us from the curse of the law. Is that Galatians 3:13? Let me look up there for a minute. So I sat there and I thought about it. I said, okay, Lord, I know that scripture. You know how us people that's been in the church our whole life, we know a lot of scriptures, but I don't know if the scripture really know us. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we got into the word like we should, that it's really in our hearts. And so he sat there talking about that. And I said, well, okay, Lord. It says in Galatians 3:13, just put that up for me for a minute. Let me go on this rabbit trail before I get into my message, if I even get into it. So as I sat there, he was talking about when Jesus went to the cross, he shed blood for really in 7 points. His feet had the nail prints, right? His hands had the nail prints. They had the crown of thorns on his head, and they pierced him in his side, 39 stripes on his back. And so we think about the crown of thorns covers mental problems, emotional problems, mourning, pain. He bore our pain. And then the 39 stripes for every major sickness and disease. With the stripes we're healed. And then he was wounded for our transgressions. Transgressions mean he did it on purpose. Well, no accident. I just don't do this. Watch me, Jesus, do it. Transgression, you break the commandment, right? Then he said he was bruised for our iniquities. Have you ever had a bruise? I got a bruise. I was at the hospital on, what day was that, Mary? I was at the hospital. No, it was Friday. I didn't get out till 11, and I just noticed I had a bruise this morning. Bruised for our iniquities. Things that's in our DNA, family sins. Bruised for our inner crookedness, things that we just like to do, intentional. Like, God's intentional, but sometimes we're intentional too, right? So he was bruised for our iniquities means that he took our whooping. Took that chastisement. They say, you be looking and say, you're going to get a whooping. Oh, Lord, I'm going to get a whooping. Jesus took your spanking, your whipping. See, and then he gave us his peace. So there's no condemnation for those who's in Christ. You're not condemned. You don't deserve punishment. See, the devil was trying to keep a door open, telling you deserve this. You know how bad you were. You know you was a bad kid, a bad teenager, and now you say, who gonna forget all the things you've done? Jesus, God has forgotten. Somebody say, God has forgotten. God has forgotten. Say, I'm a blood-bought church, been bought by the blood. I was not redeemed with corruptible things, but the blood of Jesus. That was silver and gold, but with the blood of Jesus, hallelujah, he went to the cross to pay for my sin and shame. There is no condemnation. Somebody say, no condemnation. I don't have to be ashamed anymore. I don't have to be ashamed and think about somebody don't find out what I did when I wasn't saved. I tell people, if you found out what I did when I wasn't saved, you recognize I was a sinner. I was a wreck undone. I was lost. I was a sinner. Thank you. But somebody found me. Somebody came looking for me. And somebody say his name was Jesus. He came looking for me with a mission of reconciliation, with a passion to die for my sin. You see, he had a passion. He said, I got a mission to save those that are lost. He didn't forget his focus. I came to save those that are lost. So he shed his blood for us. I got to get to the handprints, the nail prints in his hands. I'm redeemed from the curse of poverty. I can lay hands on the sick and they can recover. I can use my hands to do creative things and bless people and help people. I can make money. I can do all kinds of things with my hands, because now my hands are redeemed from the curse. See, redeemed from the curse of the law. Somebody say, I am redeemed. So I sat there and said it over and over to myself. I said, Lord, I'm redeemed from the curse of the law. Jesus bore my sin and sickness on the cross. And with the stripes on, I said, he bore my sin and his sickness on the cross. And with the stripes on, I said, he bore it. Somebody say, he took it for hope. He bore my sin and sickness. And with the stripes, I'm healed. It's a done deal. It's finished. Say, it's finished. It's finished. And then, Lord, my footsteps are ordered by the Lord, and none of them will slide. All my footsteps are ordered by the Lord, and none of them will slide. Hallelujah. I'm a blessing and not a curse. I'm not killing anybody with my hands. I'm not doing the wrong things with my feet. I'm not doing the wrong things with my mouth, because Jesus has redeemed me from the curse of the law. Made a curse for me. It is written, anyone that hangs on the tree is cursed. So he had to be cursed and be between two thieves, like he was a malefactor, like he was a criminal, out there in Golgotha, the place of refuse, the place of the dung, the place of the garbage. Saying he's garbage, but he took it for us. He identified with us. He went out to the place of refuse, but he took us with him and redeemed us from the curse. So I was sitting there, I just meditated on that. I said, thank you. I remember. They said Friday, press, you got to pursue all. What has God called you to be? I was up last night, I read Mike Murdoch's whole book. Oh, it was so awesome. I went to bed late. And what has God promised you? Are you in your place of destiny? And I thought about doing it this morning, but it was a little bit too much. And he was talking about get 4 sheets of paper and write down what you're going to do right now. It was 4 sheets of different things. Where do you want to be in this amount of time? Where do you see yourself? Okay, Lord, I got my driver's license. Took a long time. Took almost 20 years before I got it. But I got my driver's license. Thank you, Lord Jesus. I need to get my books published, and thank you, Lord, it's time to get that done. And I've been waiting on somebody, but now it's time to get some other things done. And okay, Lord, I see that. I see that weight loss. You told me that I was going to have supernatural weight loss, but I got to cooperate with you. I went back and talked to Apostle Kemp. He said, the Lord said you're going to have supernatural weight loss. So when he was here again, I went to go talk to him. He said, honey, you're going to have some discipline. We have to discipline ourselves. We have to discipline us. Do you know you? Do you know what you like? You start opening the door to eating certain foods and you just keep on eating them. You got to shut the door, right? The cigarette smoking, I don't smoke it back a cigarette anymore. I don't cuss like a fishwife anymore. How come on now? God took all those things away. But there was something he didn't take away, was this tendency to use food as a companion, as a friend, as a comforter. And now I have to discipline myself on how to eat. Now, don't think I don't know, because I'm smart. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I was studying nutrition for 30 years. I can write down anybody's diet. I can sit down and tell you exactly what to eat, but then I don't do it myself. Come on now. Physician, what? Heal yourself. Tell your neighbor, say, heal yourself. Say, answer your own prayer. Why keep on praying about stuff That was free. The answer is in you. So I want y'all to start pleading the blood every day. We are in the Halloween season. This is a time where the witches are practicing witchcraft and they kidnap people. I've been waking up every day about 5 minutes to 3 or 3 o'clock, which is the breakthrough hour when Jesus walked on the water, right? And you start doing intercession for people. That's breakthrough time. Giving birth in the morning, giving a birth from the spiritual womb on earth, giving birth, asking heaven to answer our prayer. Don't be lackadaisical during this season and not plead the blood. You need to plead the blood all day and every day. If she felt that fire, God was warning. God was warning. God will give you warnings. So watch and pray. He said we got to be the watcher. He said, watchmen, get on the wall. He said, intercessors, get back on the wall and begin to say what you see. Begin to pray through, because your family, who's praying for your family? The ones that have the biggest burden is us for our family members. We want our family saved. And here, God, here I am praying, God, again. God, save my family, God. You promised our household would be saved. Pour out your spirit on all flesh, and our sons and daughters will be taught of the Lord. We believe you, God. Block up that path for evil. Somebody say, block up the path for evil. In the name of Jesus. Break evil soul ties in Jesus' name. Where our kids are being controlled by people. It's witchcraft. It's witchcraft. That person controls them, tells them what to do, makes them move into rebellion. But God, greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. And he said, I give you power to tread on scorpions and serpents and all the power of the enemy. I give you power to bind and loose in the name of Jesus. You bind that devil up in the name of Jesus, and you loose my Holy Spirit in the situation. Break that evil soul tie. Like the prodigal son came back home, came back to his right mind, said, I think I'll go to my father's house. I think I'll go back home. He was eating what? With the pigs? And my daddy wrote a song, come out of that swine pen, prodigal son. Gotta come out the swine pen. Then when he went home, he said, I'll just be a servant. But the father loved him so that he killed the fatted calf and put the ring on his finger and gave him the robe. And everybody was rejoicing. The one that was lost was found. But the brother at home, somebody say the brother at home. The brother still in church was lost in church. Let me challenge you not to be lost in church. He sat there and had anger against the brother, anger against the father, disrespect. He said all kind of evil things, but he needed deliverance. He was hurt. He was offended. But he never asked the father. The father said, I got everything. You never asked me. You have not because you asked not. So that was free too. I was on my heart thinking about the prodigal son. You got to come back home. You got to come back to church. God has not called us to be Lone Rangers. You know how I say, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. And God said he set the solitary in the church. Do you know the church is the only living organization that can give you life? No other organization can give you life. You can do good deeds and all kind of works you want to do. But it's the church is a living organism of Christ. Y'all hear me? And he's the life giver. He's the chief apostle. He's over us all. He's the head of the church. So come back to him. This is what I, all week, as I got to the word, studying on the book of Revelation, really. I just kept studying Revelation, thinking I'm going to get it ready to present the way I want to present it. And just studying different things. And then I studied a lot of spiritual warfare on these different spirits. You know, octopus spirits, you know, that's Leviathan, represents all the tentacles, represents the evil of Leviathan, his pride, and how pride operates. And then squid, the squid spirit, I found out it was about studying that. And then the marine spirits that's in the water. There's different studies of spiritual warfare I was studying. And see, some people are not ready for deep spiritual warfare. We can do some superficial warfare. First, you got to do the warfare over your own life. You got to find out what's coming against you. What is coming against you in your thought life? Listen to me. It's in your thought life. See, if Satan can get his hook in your mind, in your mind gate, and make you think the wrong things, then he controls you to do the wrong thing. The Bible says we don't fight against flesh and blood. Y'all hear me? We're not fighting against people. Let's go to Ephesians 6. Because, right now, witchcraft is so prevalent. You driving down the street, you got goblins they got goblins and pumpkins and ghosts and stuff to make it look like ghost mess and death stuff. And I said, Lord, Lord, Lord. And then we watching Harry Potter. They got a show called The Good Witch. And how can a witch be good? Oh, come on now. We passed Samantha wiggling her nose. We know there is no such thing as no good witch. Witchcraft is evil. That's happening to the demonic. And see, we can't see demons. We don't believe in demons. But demons talk. They preach. That's called a doctrine of demons. They have thoughts. They want to feed you their thoughts and their opinions and with the mindset of the world and humanism and all these value clarification where they make you believe ain't nothing wrong and everything's right as long as you want to do it. And we don't even realize that we are fighting demons. Chapter 6 of Ephesians, and let me hurry. Give me your clock up front. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. That's verse 12. But let me go back to 10. Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord. Who we got to be strong in? Lord. Our strength has got to come from Him. How do you get strong? In the Word, in the Word. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. You got to get into the Word. So you can be strong. You got to feed your spirit. You can't sit here and feed your flesh TV, and all these nasty shows, slander, and all they do is cussing and fornicating and showing all kind of things that's not Christian-like. And you can't take garbage in and don't know that garbage ain't gonna come out of you. You can't meditate on evil day and not act evil. So be strong in the Lord. And in the power of His might. There is power that comes from Him. In the power of His might. But you got to meditate on it. Lord, show me how to release your might. Show me how to release your power. It said David leaped over a wall because of the spirit of might. Put on the whole armor, God. Somebody say, put it on. Put it on. Say, every piece. Every piece. And then it said that you may be able to stand against the strategies. King James says, wiles of the devil. The devil is a strategist. Ain't nothing new underneath the sun. He knows work, he don't keep doing the same thing. He got David. David looked at pornography. Next thing you know, he done took somebody's wife and committed murder. Ain't nothing new underneath the sun. If it worked before, it'll work again. So he's after us with generational curses, familiar spirits. Do you know what a familiar spirit is? Familiar to your family. Come down generations, everybody in the family doing that sin. You go back, grandfather, great-grandfather, the great-great, go back to all these 3 generations, and you'll see the sin in the family. So now you say, in the name of Jesus, it stops here. I got new DNA. I got a new daddy. God is my father. God is my father. And I got a big brother named Jesus. It stops here. I will not walk in this generational curse. I will not do what my parents did and other relatives. I can do all things with Christ that strengthens me. But here is the key. You have to believe the word. You have to believe the word. It is written. We've been translated out of the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of His dear Son. The first thing we have to establish is that we're new creatures and that we're in the kingdom. Somebody say we're in the kingdom. And I don't belong to the devil. I don't belong to him. I don't owe the devil anything. He doesn't have the right to have dominion over me. Read Romans chapter 5, 6, 7, 8. He has no more dominion over me. I have heard the word and I yield myself to it and obey God. I've been risen from the dead. You've been risen from the dead. Now you can obey God. Somebody say, choose to obey Him. This is the problem we're having in church. We wonder what's going on. You're on automatic pilot. You just walking in the flesh. You got to choose to obey the Spirit. Submit to God and resist the devil. You got to obey God. You got to make up your mind to obey God. And you got to gird up the loins of your mind. Strengthen your mind. And memorize scriptures and wash your mind with the word. He said, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Did you know your mind has a spirit? You got to be renewed in the spirit of your mind. A sound mind. A healthy mind. Yes. Now, God has not given you the spirit of fear. So the first thing that's going to come against you is fear. Fear has torment. Fear has torment. And if you're fearing, you're not made perfect in love. But perfect love casts out all fear. Yes. So you got to get your mind together. Gird up the loins in your mind. The Lord woke me up and told me that. I said, what you talking about? Then I did a study on, oh, I see. Don't let your mind think anything. Don't let anything come into your mind. Don't receive that evil thought. That's not you thinking that. Satan trying to plant that evil thought in your mind. Suspicion, evil. She don't like you. So-and-so hates you. All kind of mess. You ain't got no proof. It's he said, she said stuff. Talk what you know and testify what you see. Stop receiving mess. Come on, somebody say, stop being messy. God has not given us the spirit of fear. Somebody say, I reject that in Jesus' name. What does it say? God has not given me the spirit of fear again, a bondage to fear, but he's given me the spirit of adoption, where I cry out, what? Abba, Father. God, you give me a spirit of adoption. I belong to the family of God. God's adopted you. Nobody can unadopt you. You adopted. You in the family. You are heir. And join heir with Jesus Christ. Come on, say, I'm an heir. And join heir with Jesus Christ. See, this is spiritual warfare. You got to fight with the word. You a liar. I don't belong to you, devil. I belong to God. I'm the temple of the Holy Ghost. I'm the temple of the Holy Ghost. I'm filled with grace, filled with power. I'm the temple of the Holy Ghost. And I am a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. God, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. Nation that you've been called what? Out of what? Out of darkness into is what? Marvelous light. Come on, your son. Somebody say, I've been called out of darkness. I've been called out of darkness. I don't have to walk with creepy crawlers anymore. I don't have to walk with roaches anymore. I've been called out of darkness into his marvelous light. So what did it say? God's not giving you the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. Somebody say, put on the sound mind. Control your thought life. When an evil thought comes your way, you rebuke it in Jesus' name. You say, go to the dry places. You are a lie. I'm not thinking that. I'm not receiving that. This is warfare. Yes. See, we got to overcome that so we can start hearing the voice of God. You saw all the people at the mic this morning, spiritual training. We teach them how to hear the voice of God. My sheep hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. You need to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. So you come in here on Sunday morning and instead of you sitting here just listening, we let them participate. So they grow up in the Spirit and say, this is what I heard. This is what I heard. It's called training. Somebody say training. Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor. So we know strategies of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So see, there's a wrestling. I didn't want to be no wrestler. But see, we all are wrestlers. Because we're not wrestling against people, but against, there are princes over nations. You found that in the book of Daniel when he fasted for 21 days. The angel came and said, I heard you the first day you prayed, but there was a demon of Persia that came against me, so I couldn't give you the message. So you've been praying, and there's warfare. You say, what's going on? Sabotage. There's hindering spirits. So you got to keep on praying. Might get 2 or 3 intercessors to pray with you. Down by yourself. Come on, get the body to pray with you. And then it says, powers that control nations. Powers. Like I heard the man of God say, is there an angel that over the United States of America want to defeat our nation? A house divided against itself will not stand. A house divided against itself will not stand. Against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, drugs, the prostitution, the legalizing of marijuana, all these things. We think casino gambling is wonderful now, legalization of marijuana, and this and that and the other, and we think it's wonderful. Darkness is taking over. Can't you see what's going on? When you let this stuff move in, prostitution and drugs come with it, and all type of crime. Are we that naive and gullible? When I was in high school, they told us that weed killed brain cells. And the people start smoking at 15 and 16, they still acting like they're 15 and 16 at 30 and 40. Arrested growth. Pornography changes your brain waves. And pornography has to be acted out. It escalates like cigarettes. You start with cigarette smoking. Next thing you know, you're doing crack cocaine. Next thing you're on a needle. All kind of stuff. Now they on these hallucinogenic drugs again. You know, in the 70s doing that, in the pot area, all that, there was no things happen. People were taking these drugs, and now we got all these different, what are the things, they met labs. We got these labs where they can make $1 billion, $1 million off of these drugs. And people don't care about you. The love of money is the root of it. They just love money. They don't care about you. They don't care about who your name is. They don't care if you're Whitney Houston. They don't care if you're Michael Jackson. They don't care if you're Prince. They just want you to take the drugs. Powers of darkness. Do it in the dark. They do it. Why ain't you doing it in the daytime? Now you know that demon done got real bold when he stood out there in the daytime next to your house selling drugs. That's a bold demon then. They don't take it over the neighborhood. You got to run them out. When the Apostle and I moved in that neighborhood, they stand in the corner and sell drugs. We put anointing oil on there. One of the sisters from Victoria's Believers came back. The Lord said, come pray with you. And we was praying. Honey, we drove them people out. One day, Apostle got mad with me about it. But they was on the corner drinking and stuff, a whole group of teenage boys. I went out there and talked to them. I said, you know y'all shouldn't be out here doing this. And then I said, you can't go for bad. Well, I'm trying to go for bad. I said, you need to get off this corner. And then the one boy saw me and said, I'm sorry, my grandmother said she wouldn't want me doing that. She said, the Holy Ghost convicted. But we drove him out, and he would get up and drive around the neighborhood in the middle of the night and just pray and look at him on the corner. And next thing they start dispersing and stop being in our neighborhood. You got to drive the devil out. You can't give no place to the devil. You can't sit up here and be scared of him. We got to unite with prayer, praying power. The first thing you got to do is start praying and plead the blood and put on your armor. You can't go in this battle without all the armor. It said, wherefore take unto you the whole armor. Once again, he said the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand against the end of the evil day haven't done understand. The days are getting real evil right now. Okay, then it said we have our loins girded with truth. That's a place of procreation where you can have reproduction. Produce after your kind. Reproduce after the truth. The truth needs to be hidden in you so you can reproduce after the truth. See? And then it says right here, having on a breastplate of righteousness. You got to know the right thing to do. Do you know the right thing to do? Righteousness. Rightness. Choose to do right. Don't do wrong. Choose to do right. Get around people who are doing right. Get around elders who will teach you how to do right. Stop hanging out with your friends, Slick Willie and all them. Have on the breastplate of righteousness. Like I was telling somebody, if you hang out with a wino, you're going to be drinking wine with them. If you hang out with a crackhead, you're going to be doing crack. If you hang out with weed, Mrs. Glenn, Miss Glenn, I just be in the car with them and I would be smoking. But while you sleep, every time you come after lunch, you lay on that sleep. Every day, because you've been in the car and you got contact. And sure enough, this little boy was dressed to kill. Looked like his mama was spending all her money on clothes. I went to that place where they have, you've been kicked out of school, and I was studying there. Walked in, I said, what you doing here? He said, well, I got put out of school. I talked to him real good. It was a point, this one kid was from the Buena Vista School District. I said, what are you studying? What's this you got here? He said, history. I said, well, do you know how to read? I said, let me show you how to read, to understand, and to comprehend. I went through it with him, the outline and all that kind of stuff. Do you know that boy, God cried and hugged me? No one had ever helped him. We're taking stuff for granted. My mama was a school teacher, educator. What we did all summer was read books and study. I thought it was fun. Now I found out she was making me get educated. So what I'm saying, spiritual warfare, if they can keep our children ignorant, they can't read, they can't pass the math, then they left behind in the jobs. They can't get the jobs. What is that, STEM? Right now we're teaching science, technology, engineering, math. We were teaching STEM all summer. It was fun, but it was science, it was technology and engineering, math. No child left behind so they can get the jobs. Right now our kids are going to be left behind, and the drug dealers are going to tell them all they can do is sell drugs or rob stores or be a gangbanger. One mistake can throw away your life for 10 to 15, 20 years. One thing you did wrong, you went along with the group. Read Proverbs chapter 1. My son say no. Don't consent to them. Don't listen to them when they say, we're going to all get this big person. We're going to split the money. But their pathway leads to death, it says in Proverbs chapter 1. Don't consent. Say no to them. Listen to your mama and daddy. Some people ain't got no mama and daddy. Come to church. We'll be your mama and daddy. We'll tell you right from wrong. We'll teach you so you won't fall prey in these sepulchres of life. There's a pothole. Can't you see that hole in front of you? Danger, danger. The light is flashing. You're going to fall into a pit. Yes. So we're not fighting against flesh and blood. He said, having your loins girded about with you, breastplate of righteousness. We studied Peter. We went through all those things that you add to your faith. I've been saved a long time, but I had never really studied that. And I learned, I'm missing, I'm reading here. I got to add this to my faith. It said godliness, virtue, patience, long-suffering, love. You got to read that Peter account. Think of 2 Peter, right? The first part, that God's given us everything that for us, in the Holy Spirit, divine nature has given us everything. But you got to do spiritual multiplication and mathematics. You got to add to your faith. Look at yourself and say, Lord, where am I missing a lack of patience? I'm not kind, I'm not godly enough, I'm not loving enough, I'm not patient. Lord, help me add to my faith. Because it says in Peter, you would have forgotten that you were saved. And that your sins were blotted out if you don't add to your faith. So I'm saved, but I still got to add to my faith. I got to say, God, help me get in the Bible study every day. Let me get in the Word so you can show me and you can keep on washing me. Keep on washing me through your word. I'm saved, but you keep washing me through your word. I'm saved, the blood keeps on cleansing me. If I see things wrong, I repent. And Lord, I don't want to do that no more. I'm walking in the light as He's in the light. And the blood of Jesus cleansing me from all sin. What are you talking about? I'm saved, but I got to get cleansed by the blood again. If I do something wrong, I got to repent. This is where we got a problem with the church. They teach us sloppy grace. That God's grace is sufficient for past, present, and future sins. And you don't have to repent. They're lying to you. If you do something wrong, you got to repent and tell God to serve. Yeah, you say, but he didn't commit a sin of the devil. And God, to wherever he finds sin, he's going to judge it. Jesus is coming to save us from the wrath of God to come. That's why we got to get in the word and come to church to keep ourselves in security. It's safety in the church. You got my back and I got your back. And you can show me, oh, that ain't right. I'll be finished in a minute, people. Taking the helmet of salvation. Is your helmet on? But all taking the shield of faith. Some people's shield is this big, a baby shield, because they failed to get the word hidden in their heart. So, because Satan is shooting at them. A fiery dart, you know it's gotten to you when you're thinking evil. A fiery dart has gotten to you. So feed your shield so it can get right. I love that movie 300. They all lock their shields. We could all lock our shields together and put them up when the fiery darts are coming against us. Put them up. Come on, church. Put them up. Yes. Fiery darts. Can you see that? He's shooting at you. Do, 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 do. You can't sit around with your shield over there. Anybody seen my shield? Where's my helmet of salvation? Are you saved? I don't think I'm saved. Some people lay down their helmet of salvation and say, I'm going to fight, I'm going to cuss them out, I'm going to do this and that. Come on, you got to keep your helmet on. Yeah. You got to get your breastplate of righteousness. You got to get your shield of faith. And the last one is the sword of the Spirit. That's a defensive weapon when you have to fight. Yeah. So you got to speak the word. See, what I would do, I would sit there. First thing I usually do is cry usually. That's just me. I just cry. Then after that, I start warring. And the Lord said, you're not speaking nothing. Well, I know the word. He said, say so. He said, oh, I like this song. Open your mouth and say something. And they got a Dove nomination. Open your mouth and say something. What you gonna speak the word? Open your mouth and say something. Yeah. Because the devil is speaking to you and you're just sitting there taking it. And he's sitting there watching you. Oh, I got her now. She cried the blues already. You got to say something. Say the word. Let the Redeemer what? Or the Lord say what? Say so. Speak the word. So see, take all the shield of faith. That was verse 16. Where you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the enemy. I was watching the movie. They stuck the arrow in the fire and that oil and lit it. And then they would shoot people. And people would fall out and they would start burning up. That is a horrible way to die. We want to make sure that we are able to understand this is spiritual warfare. And yeah, we're in the world and we're enjoying the world. And I want to go to Disney World and I want to go to Alaska on a cruise and look at the icebergs and all that stuff. And I just want to travel to see America. But I have not forgotten that I am a soldier in God's army. And we can't be absent without permission. And we got to always watch and pray. We never know who we're going to help. We never know who we're going to lead to Christ. I had a friend on campus, college campus. We used to laugh at him. He put on his suit and had his suitcase to go visit people to witness to him. We said, yeah, you're not really gone too far. But he was leading people to Christ. We forgot that we're supposed to be leading people to Christ. That we're God's representatives here on earth. Have we forgot our mission? Or are we just playing church now? Playing church games. Playing church promotion. Who got the biggest title? I just been watching. I've been looking. I said, whoa. I said, what's going on? I can't tell the saints from the sinners now. They doing everything. What's up with this? The old saints taught us whatever it takes. He said, follow peace with all men and holiness without no man. So to the Lord, you can't do everything. I ain't going back to the old flesh pot. The stuff that I been with all night, bro. Been with all night. It was all right when I started cheating. See, I like to cheat. I like to win. Monopoly all night. Bad attitude come in. You begin to find out who you are. I ain't going back to that no more. Certain things I'm not going back to. Watch the devil. He'll try to make you go back to old flesh pots. Before you know it, you watching TV all day, ain't got no time for the words. Huh? Can't go to Wednesday Bible study, so it's your favorite show coming on. Was it Slander or what was it? What was it? It was on Wednesday. I knew it was on Wednesday Bible study. But everybody goes, I need I was down south in North Carolina, supposed to be praying with a prophetess. Also, she said she had to turn. We had to stop praying so she could watch that show. That's what that show is about. I said, you ain't got to watch that. You got to read about David and Bathsheba. You can go in your Bible and read about adultery. Okay. Quench all the fiery darts. Take the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Now, listen, I never added verse 18 and I'm finished with warfare. Praying always. 3 o'clock in the morning, get up and pray. 6 o'clock, pray. The prayer watch is from 12 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9. It goes around. There's 4 prayer watches. Get into the prayer watch and find out about it and begin to pray. Get on the wall, be that watchman. What do you see coming against our country? What do you see? What do you see in the spirit? Don't get caught up in this wave of gossip and rumor. Begin to seek the face of God. He said, God, I want to be like Habakkuk. He got on the wall and complained. He said, God, look at all this stuff going on wrong. And then God spoke him in chapter 2. He thought he was going to be rebuked, but he said, the just shall live by faith. What am I speaking? I was getting kind of weary. I was getting kind of tired. I said, God, I'm so tired of this. I'm just tired of religion and church, and I'm wore out, Lord. But I've been reading Revelation. We win at the end. So keep your focus right. Because there's a spirit that want to wear out the saints. It's a spirit of weariness. So we got to fight. And like I said, I do have the handouts here. There's about 3 or 4. Prophetess Mary, can you type some of these over for me? Or 1 or 2, maybe we can get them cleaned up so we can get them out to people and everything. Father, in Jesus' name, we plead the blood of Jesus. We want to not forget to put on our whole armor. We know this is the witchcraft month, so we hit the bind hexes and vexes and hoodoo and voodoo and the spirit of Python and the spirit of Jezebel and Ahab in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, God. And we lose the anointing that destroys the yoke. We come against whoredom and perversion. Hallelujah, Lord. We plead the blood of Jesus. We lose the spirit of holiness right now and the fear of God. An unclean spirit, the unholy trinity is whoredom, which includes fornication, all kinds of sexual sin. And then we got to lose the the fear of God and the opposite of that in the name of Jesus. Halaba. It's whoredom, perversion, and an unclean spirit. Unholy Trinity. This is what we're seeing all over our nation. But we bind it up in Jesus' name. We loose agape love and holiness and the fear of God in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord. We loose the spirit of life. Jesus said, I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. We lose life. We bind it to life. That you would see God. That seek begin in you. That you would see God like never before in the name of Jesus.
Amen. Hallelujah. So if you are here and you don't have all your armor in place, you don't have the ability to do that, there's three people I want to kind of make an appeal to. You said, man of faith, I once had my whole armor intact, ready to roll. But for whatever reason, there's a chink in my armor. There's a chink in my armor. So I want to kind of rededicate my life to the Lord so my armor can be strong, so my shield can grow. My shield of faith can grow to be able to quench those fiery darts. The other person I want to appeal to is that you don't know nothing about the armor. You have no idea. You don't know anything about the Lord. And you said, look, I'm tired of getting beat up. I'm ready to take the offensive. I want to get my shield. I want to get my armor. I want my sword of the Spirit so I can war back against the enemy. And the last person is a person who's, you've been in church all your life. You done heard the word. You know how to do all the religious language. You know what to do when it comes to church, but you don't know what to do when it comes to God. So if that's you, if any one of those is you, raise your hand so we can pray with you. We want to be able to pray with you so you can get where you need to be. Amen. Okay, come on up, young lady. Let's pray with you. Let's give her a hand as she comes. Praise the Lord. Come on, man. This is one of the most precious times in church. When somebody comes up and gives their life to the Lord. The Bible says that the angels in heaven are rejoicing. Come on up, honey. They're going to play with you. Our ladies in our building are going to pray with you. Hallelujah. Yeah.
Let's say, Jesus, come back into my heart. I open the door. Now help me to obey God. I'm willing and I'll be obedient. Say, I receive your mind, the mind of Christ, and I'll do your will, oh God. In Jesus' name. Jesus' name. Thank you, Jesus. See, the Spirit is touching you. Now raise your hands and yield to Him. It's a yield and say, I surrender all, Lord. I surrender all. You've been trying to work it out yourself, but you can't. You got to trust God. You got to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. But you got to take baby steps. Don't stop going. You got to keep coming to church. You got to get in your Word. I got the Bible studies for you to do. Baby steps. All you got to do is first to take step. You just took the first step coming up here. I don't know if you've been water baptized. That's the second step. And things that God wants you to do. Yes, that's wonderful. A cleansing stream is coming from His presence. We thank you for the blood Jesus cleansing you right now. Receive the blood. You believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God, don't you? You believe He died for your sin? You believe that He got up? That He's able to keep you from falling? Say, thank you, Jesus. 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 Thank you, Lord. Yalalabosata. 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 Hallelujah. 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 Sikarabosata. Sikarabosata. Sakara Sharon. Sakara Shakarabosata. Everybody pray in the Spirit as the Lord is ministering to our dear sisters. Is there another one? With the stripes we're healed. Healing is the children's bread. We are redeemed from the curse of the law. He bore our sin and our sickness. Listen, Jesus bore your sickness and your sin. He bore them both. And He said, watch this. Your sins are forgiven. Take up your bed and walk. It's just that easy. You are forgiven. You are accepted and beloved. He said, I will no wise cast you out. You are accepted. You are body outside. You're not rejected. You're accepted. We bind spirits in the name of Jesus. God loves you with an everlasting love. God loves you with an everlasting love. And He will no wise cast you out. He's working on you. Yes, He is. He's working on you right now. From the inside out. Wash you, God. A cleansing stream is flowing. A cleansing stream is flowing. In the name of Jesus. Through the blood of Jesus. Through the blood of Jesus. Hallelujah, Lord. Hallelujah. Is there another one that wants prayer?
Anybody else need prayer this morning? This will be the time to come up. Don't be ashamed. It's not about what people think. It's about what God thinks. Amen. Come on, sister. Praise the Lord.
Come get the one, the baby. Okay. Oh, the baby wants to be prayed for. Come and get the little baby. Okay. His name is Malachi. First his name. You'll put that out of my head. Panhandle. Got three. Right here with me. Take this back one, okay? About 5 to 10 minutes after this. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Come on, give God the praise.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Heaven is rejoicing right now.
We got to make sure that we save.
Somebody else praying? Come on, come on.
We got to make sure we save. That we know. You know what? Last night stayed up late and watched Dr. Stanley. And Dr. Stanley was talking about how he prayed about everything, and the Lord led him to the right place. He got that church, First Baptist, because of prayer. He didn't want to go there, but God said, you got to go. And he just cried. But when he obeyed God and prayed, the Lord said, go. He went, and he's been there over 50-something years.
Hallelujah. We had a prayer right here, prophet.
Come on. You too. Y'all dedicated the baby. I wasn't there on this side. It was fast. Apostle did it fast. This is what I was thinking about. Order my footsteps in your word. With the nail prints in his hands, that means your footsteps are ordered by God, and none of them will slide. And then, Lord, whatever he laid his hands on, it will prosper. Because Jesus bore the nail prints in his hand. He is redeemed from the curse of the law. So he can, or whatever he let the outside. Open the door. Give him supernatural favor in the job. Open the right door. Ask, seek, and knock that the door may be open. And all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy path. He's going to have you meet some people. There's going to be some open the door. Thank you, Lord. You're going to walk to the open door. You're going to walk to the open door with a smile on your face, because God is going to have you meet the right people. There's going to be contact, but that person will not be the person, but the other person on the other side of the door will be the person. But you just got to ask, seek, and knock, and you got to be obedient to God. You got to obey God and hear his voice, and don't follow strangers. We find any type of stress, any type of nervousness, any type of want you to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, because you're not going to do that. You're going to obey God in Jesus' name. Hear his voice. You're going to hear his voice. Ask, seek, and knock. Ask, seek, and knock that the door may be open. Thank you, Lord. Sometimes it's not the first door. Ask, seek, and knock that the door may be open. Thank you, Lord. But as you go, God said, as you go, I will show you the way. As you move, I will show you the way. Because God is a God of movement. As you move, I will show you the way. Thank you, Jesus. 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 Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Peace, be still. Peace to troubled waters. Peace, peace. Fear not, for I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I am Yahweh Shammah, the God that's always there. I'm omnipotent. I know everything. I'm your Alpha and Omega, your beginning and your end. I know the steps you're supposed to take. I know the doors are supposed to be open. I have your book, and it's written, and I'm turning chapters. I'm turning pages. Let me write the book God's saying. Hallelujah. See, in your life, there's certain things God knew was going to happen. He knew who he was going to be married to. He knew how many children you were going to have. God knows everything about you. So fear not. God said, I'm with you. I'm ordering your footsteps. I'm ordering your footsteps by my word. All you got to do is stay in the word, son. All you got to do is stay in the word, daughter. And let me order you. Let me order you as one. Let me order you in agreement. Where two touch and agree, it shall be done for them, said the Lord. You got to be in agreement. Submit to God, resist the devil, submit to each other. Hear the voice of God in your wife. Hear the voice of God in your husband. Submit to God and resist the devil. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. How do you submit? See, some people teach only submission to the man, but you submit to each other. You know that, right? Yeah. And you hear the voice of God. It's something real simple. I wanted to go somewhere Thursday. I was going to go to the church service. Pastor said, I don't want you to go. So I said, well, I guess I ain't going. He don't want me to go because I didn't feel that well anyway, but I was going to go anyway. I said, well, I'm going to tell my husband that I'm not glad I did. So, little stuff. Pray about it. Ask if you're knocking that the door may be open. There's something God will give you the desire in your heart, and you tell your husband, this is the desire of my heart. You pray about it, then you release it. Go ahead and do what you want to do, honey. See, you got to have adult-to-adult relationship. Two adults, not adult child. Two adults. So you submit to each other in the fear of God. What is God saying? Go ahead and do what the Lord is leading you to do. See, that's a mature man that can release his wife. Be all that she wants to be. So after a while, motherhood will be over. Raising babies will be over. And then you'll have things that you can do that you never thought you could do. So just get in a balance. Just get in a balance. This won't be forever. I look back now, my kids are gone. I said, boy, those were precious years when they were little, and I look at the pictures and laugh. But they're gone. So enjoy your children while they're little. Enjoy your wife while she's young. Because when you get old, it's different. That was recorded, wasn't it? Oh, no, Tracy, that ain't right.
Got this young man right here.
This is a young man.
Come on up, brother.
In the name of Jesus. Get out! In Jesus' name. Yes. He belongs to Jesus. He belongs to God. Take it to the back, Leon. Pray with them in the spirit. Hallelujah. Like I said, my initial sermon was the power over demons. And the printer wouldn't work, so I didn't want to give it to you halfway. But we have power over demons. He said, go out and preach the kingdom. Freely you have received, freely give. Cast out the devil, heal the sick, raise the dead. Hallelujah. And they rejoiced, and he said, listen, don't just rejoice over the power over demons. Rejoice that your name is written in the kingdom of heaven, in the kingdom book of life. So we thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Healing is the children's bread. How many was here last week when Pastor Rivers finished? He said, the Glens know how to do deliverance. And then somebody came in and needed deliverance. Hallelujah. And Mary Jean was here to see it for herself. The girl ran up and said, I'm looking for a Pastor Loma. I said, it's me, Leona. And she said, they said I could come here and get delivered. Got her delivered. And then I did so much what I could do. When the apostle came in Sunday, she walked out and said, that's the one. And he laid hands and the rest of them came out. I want you to know we can deliver and we don't have to work at it. I just believe. I was on college campus and the first thing I learned how to do was cast out devils. The girl was in my room. We was in a circle. We was bleeding the blood. And the girl fell out on the floor. I said, what's wrong with her? And so I didn't know that they had been casting demons out of her, and I didn't know it. And them young preachers had books, brother, books on how to cast demons out. They didn't know what they was doing. And that girl elevated off the floor in the air. And it took 5 people to hold her down. And I'm just looking, I was like this, and she slapped me in the face. Real hard. And her best friend was being sympathetic with the demon. She's like, leave her alone. And so the next thing, her eyes were glassy. We took her out. She never came back. She backslid. And so I learned that was a good lesson, a first lesson to learn about demons. Then the next thing, some twins around the corner won't be saved. And the twin came and got me, and she started screaming at the top of her lungs. I said, I'm not going to be with you all night. In the name of Jesus, come out. And she went out and got saved. Because we was up all night with that girl. The first one in my apartment, Demona cleaned the whole apartment. The next thing I know, this is stupid. They said my teddy bear had a demon in it. Maybe get rid of my Pooh Bear, my big old Pooh Bear. They said the demon had entered the teddy bear. That's how crazy stuff was back then. But then when I learned to deliver, somebody knocked on my door. I said, what's wrong with this girl? She gonna tell me off. I said, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you. And she ran like a scalded dog. I learned deliverance right there on college campus. I found out some people like their demons. They like to keep them. Cast a demon out of this one guy, and it came out, then he went back up, came right back in. I said, God, what happened? He said he wanted it. He liked it. So I can tell you some stories to make you laugh, but back then it wasn't funny to me. Especially when she slapped me in my face like that. It wasn't funny. I said, I ain't gonna have that happen again. I know better to get down and say something that means that. And Apostle got some stories. Oh, wow. So we had an offering to take for Christ Community. We're going over to their appreciation, and it's over at the Horizons. It's $35 ticket if you want to go. We got a table so far, but more people can go. You got to pay at the door if you're going to go. I can call Miss Reed and see how many tickets they got left and how many seats. But we want to have make it a big day for Dr. Seals and Joyce Seals and just be a blessing. Plus, we're going to eat real good. They're going to have bread pudding and fried chicken and potatoes and everything. It's going to be just really good. So we're going to go over there and the best thing in the world, I ain't got to do no dishes. So if you want to write a check out, I guess we'll write it out to Christ Community or Center Attraction, and we'll just write one check. Have Apostle, when he gets here, he had to preach over at Christ Community this morning. But Les did try to make a copy of my sermon, but it got cut off, Power of Demons. You missed the top part. So if you want to take this part with you, but then we'll have to get you another copy later on of the whole sermon about power over demons. I think I preached this once, Marianne, but I didn't finish it. I was going to try to finish it today, but I didn't get a chance. So we do have some good copies on the blood of Jesus. Prophetess Mary, can you type this one? You real fast with typing. Type this one over again for me so we can give them a clean, pretty copy. Just the first page needs to be typed over. That first page is this is different. Mike gave those to me from Bishop Kim Young. That was from Bishop Kim, Mike's mom. So you can bring up the money, and we're not going to go through protocol. Let's come up with Melissa's here standing. If you want to do point of sale, I guess you can. Keenan, I'm going to give you one because you don't get here too often. I know you had to work on Sundays a lot. That's a shame. But we're going to believe God. Our men are back to work. Come on, give God some praise. The ones that were on strike and the women. And now we got to keep praying for fair contracts that they get their bonuses and things like that. Hallelujah. I would at least like $200 to come in if you can. I already gave my money to Apostle. Yeah. You see why it's important? I want to do a series on empowering you guys to cast demons out. That's why I was going to redo it. Because we need to learn how to cast demons out. It's not hard. But listen, you can't have you got to plead the blood and put your armor on before you try to cast the devils out. And you don't want to be in his territory. Like the sons of Sceva, that one demon stripped 7 brothers butt naked and they were running out the house. One demon-possessed man beat up 7 men. He said, Paul I know and Christ I know, but I don't know you. And so beat him up. So we got to have the power. We got to have our armor on. We got to plead the blood. If we have any sin in our life, repent of it. Known sin. No open doors. As one of my friends told me, are you having any challenges in your life? Are you having any challenges? You say, but are you being challenged in some area? You know, saved people can cuss. I didn't believe that, but I seen some do it. I said, oh, they were so anointed and singing. But then they can say bad words. I was wondering about that. He said, gifts and callings are without repentance. And they not guard their spirit. You can't let your guard down. If you get so angry, anything can come out your mouth. Did y'all hear me? Get so angry and get into fuss or fight, you'd be surprised when it come out your mouth. Where'd that come from? Watching that TV show. And he was teaching you how to cuss. That's why these little babies can cuss so good. These little 2 and 3-year-olds, I said, you better not say nothing around these kids. I don't know how old Nathaniel was. I think Pookie was up there in Minnesota. He was about to one. Somebody said that N-I-G-G-E-R word. As soon as he heard it, he said it. We can't say these things. How we doing, Melissa, within our count? $67. We only got $67.
What are you trying to give, Prophet?
I was trying to get 200. I guess I'll go to 100.
Okay.
You know, last year, I'm going to say this, we didn't give any money. Since I forgot to take up the offering last year, Cass to pay the money out of her pocket. I just want y'all to know that last year, I had to pay y'all money because y'all didn't give none. This year, I made sure I'm asking.
Well, amen. We done made it to 100 at least. Hallelujah.
That's good.
Hallelujah.
Pastor already wrote the check already for 500.
Okay. Well, praise God. So I think it's time for benediction. Is it time for benediction, Prophet?
Yes, it is. It's time for us to go.
All right.
You know what? Service is over. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you. We were done.
So let's do the benediction, please. Real quick, please stand.
Okay.
Amen. Isn't the Lord good? Sometimes he runs a little bit over. But you know, we follow the leading of the Spirit, so we apologize if he was on the time schedule. But let's read our 10 minutes, give me 3 minutes, give me. And the benediction, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord makes his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Hug somebody, tell them that you love them, and remember to keep Jesus at the center of your